All right, everyone, welcome back to J-Face Games. We're going to talk about a classic board game today and what the heck I would want to do with it. And this game is Twilight Struggle. For those of you who don't know what Twilight Struggle is, it's a classic board game that deals with the Cold War of the US and USSR during the space race and all sorts of stuff. And it goes over multiple eras, and I'll show you the board. It's a really cool board. And the idea here is that you're trying to get influence over different areas, etc. But the main mechanic in this game is the card play, okay? And I find the card play interesting, and out of all of these versions of this game, the card play has been in, not only is it Twilight Struggle, but it's in another game called 1960 Race for the Presidency. It's in another one called Watergate, which was the newest kind of version of it. It's in a lot of different games of this sort of system. Well, Twilight Struggle was the most brutal of those games, and I'll tell you why as we look at this card. So the card looked like this, and in essence on your turn you had two things you could do with it. You could either spend it to get the points, and those points would then allow you to put cubes on the board and do influence and etc. Move some dials. Like, it was a resource, right? You could spend it for the points and get resources, or you could spend it for the event, and the event was like a superpower. Now, the reason I say Twilight Struggle was the most brutal at this is that in all these games, it's a shared deck of cards, right? It's a shared deck of cards. Well, Watergate doesn't, and you've got your own deck. But in 1960 and in Twilight, it's a shared deck of cards, and so it's random which cards you're getting. So you could be the player who's playing in the US, and you have some Soviet Union cards in your deck. Or you could be a Soviet Union player, and you've got some US cards in your deck. And what that means is that in this game, Twilight Struggle, if I was the US player and I played a Soviet card, the Soviet player got to automatically use the event. So I didn't get to choose. I got to points and they got to use the event, which made Twilight Struggle a game where it was, how do you mitigate the pain, mostly. It was not an uplifting game. You did not feel empowered. It was, both players felt like, ugh, every time they played a card. Now there was ways of mitigating those cards in the sense of there was the space race track and I could play the card towards that and then no one got the benefit of it, but that was it. 1960, the sort of follow-up game to this genre, it instituted this thing where you had to have momentum tokens to spend in order to enact your event that the other player is playing. So there was this like, let me see if I can wait and play this card because they might be out of momentum tokens, etc. So it added a little bit more positivity to it, where it wasn't just a constant slugfest. Now, what does this mean for RPGs? Well, I love this genre of game. I absolutely love these games. 1960 is one of my favorites on my shelf right now. And what I think would be interesting is if you thought about cards like powers, right? And I haven't thought this through 100%, but I've thought a couple of different concepts through. Like, what if there was a shared player deck of cards, or if you had your own deck of cards and it was your powers, right? And you bought your powers as you were playing and you kind of built up this deck. But I thought it'd be cool to be a shared deck because you don't know, like, we as a team have these different powers we use. But in essence, the more powerful powers had, or you could either be using the points, there was some sort of point system that those points would allow you to affect the game in some way. Maybe this was the kind of damage you were doing. Maybe this was sort of like your pluses to attack, or your actual attack instituted that. If you had a 2, that meant you hit 2 targets, or you did 2 hits, and you could designate where those hits go, right? Like, there was a point value that was very mechanical. Like, it was like, I do this, and then boom, boom, hit these things, right? Or there was some sort of power down here that then had a effect that was more like story-driven. I change this, I kill this, I do all that stuff. But I like the idea of, on these cards also, there being something that the DM can evoke, right? Maybe you have some cards in there where the event is purely the DM's benefit, but it has a lot of points up here. So I get a lot of hits, or I get a lot of mechanical hits. but now the DM's getting momentum of some sort, like they're getting something out of it. And I like the idea of, because I love that in these games where I have this choice to, do I use the event or do I use the points based on what the scenario, how things look? And then on top of that, if I use this, does it help my enemy too much, or is it worth it? And that in essence is the feeling I want to evoke with this, in this sort of like mechanic, this idea of, could I have a card with multiple uses, the events and the resources, and can I use it, can I burn it for the power or whatnot, right? You think of something like 4E, and that would be an easy sort of 4E D&D in essence had power cards, right? In essence, it was a power card. If it was an encounter card, I use it once encounter, daily, once a daily, and you would flip it over. And so there have been RPG systems that have used limited power, in essence, cards per encounters. And so now you could think of it maybe like, these are your spark points, these are your hits. I don't know. I think there's something there in terms of, it would be very interesting to see, do you play for the points, do you play for the event? Am I going to benefit my partner or my enemy? Sorry. So anyways, that's the idea. You could think about this in terms of your own RPG now. Like, what would these points denote? You know, are these points, depending on maybe the type of character you are, denotes what these points are used. Maybe on your character sheet, if you are a healer, you know, you can use 1 point and it causes an attack, 1 point causes a heal, 2 points causes a group heal. You know, you could have these very nice individual character arc cards that this number lets you know exactly what it does, right? If I'm going to play this 4, I am a ranger, and so I can use 3 points for 3 hits, boom, but they have to be different targets. Or I could use 2 points to have my bear go punch that thing in the face. You know, I think it'd be a lot of fun. Anyways, that's Twilight Struggle. Awesome game. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell, and I hope to hear from you guys in the comments, and talk to you soon.